Hello and welcome to the weekly sneaky food review. Our featured food today is my absolute favorite yellow vegetable. While botanically speaking it's a fruit, I probably wouldn't say it to its face because it's the toughest fruit I know. I'm talking about spaghetti squash. As a special treat for you today, we've devised an experiment to determine just how hardy this unique member of the winter squash family really is. Today's experiment could not take place without the use of a very specially designed and moderately priced testing device. We like to call it the crusher. And just to keep the results of our experiment legit, we've engaged the services of a professional tester. Please help me welcome the Smash. Once our featured vegetable has been inserted between the mighty jaws of the crusher, the Smash will begin hitting the top of the crusher with heavier and heavier hammers until the vegetable is crushed.
It's gone. It's done.
So what exactly is winter squash anyways? Both summer squash and winter squash are members of the cucurbit family. Summer squash includes things like zucchini and scallop squash, cricket nut squashes, where your winter squashes you're going to find things like Hubbard squash, butternut, acorn, and spaghetti squash. The difference is, even though they're grown in the same season, winter squash are allowed to mature on the vine. And what this does, it allows the fruit to form a thick, hard skin. And what it does is it allows us to store these vegetables for up to 6 months, making them ready to consume during the cold winter months. Hence their name, winter squash. Winter squashes, like spaghetti squash, are really important vegetables to include in a healthful diet, especially when it comes to increasing your intake of antioxidants. Just like carrots, winter squashes are really rich sources of the antioxidant carotenes, especially beta-carotene and alpha-carotene. In fact, spaghetti squash and other winter squashes are one of the richest dietary sources of alpha-carotenes available to us. They also contain great quantities of vitamin C, and consuming about 1 cup of cooked squash will provide about 30% of your recommended daily intake of vitamin C. In addition to this, winter squash also has other amazing properties such as antiviral, antibacterial, and anti-inflammatories. The combination of antioxidants and anti-inflammatories is extremely powerful when it comes to the treatment and prevention of various forms of cancer, and also in reducing the risk of developing cardiovascular disease. And if that wasn't enough good news, there's still more. In fact, winter squashes, like spaghetti squash, provide 5 of the different B-complex vitamins that are essential when it comes to regulating blood sugar. And this is a really important step in preventing or managing type 2 diabetes. So what else can I tell you about this amazing vegetable other than it really is your friend and you should start eating more of it? That completes the scientific portion of this week's review. Now let's take a culinary look at our featured food. Spaghetti squash, like all other winter squashes, can be peeled and cubed, then you can steam it, bake it, broil it, or roast it. You can add it to soups and stews, you can puree it and season it, serve it as a vegetable side dish. But why would you want to do that when you can make spaghetti? Just like people, we should be appreciating spaghetti squash's unique qualities. That's what makes it special. Today we're going to show you how to make spaghetti squash with pesto, smoked salmon, and shaved Parmesan cheese. Yum! Now let's take a look at the ingredients we're going to need to start making this tasty spaghetti squash dish. To prepare 4 servings of today's dish, you're going to need 1 6 to 8 inch spaghetti squash. Try to select a nice firm dark colored squash for the most beta carotene. You're also going to need 250 grams of smoked salmon. Now we're really fortunate here where I live in British Columbia's Comox Valley to have a wonderful local fish market called Portuguese Joe's. They've been around for decades, they're family run, and they do an awesome job. It's wild, it's house smoked, and it's fabulous. If you're ever in the area, you should check them out. You're also going to need 4 tablespoons of pesto, either homemade or store-bought, 75 grams of shredded Parmesan cheese, and sea salt and black pepper to season. Our ingredients are now all ready, so let's bake some spaghetti squash. To prepare our spaghetti squash to bake, we need to first take a knife and start poking some holes into the skin. And they don't have to be very deep, but just go around the surface and poke several holes all the way around. The reason we're doing this is to prevent the squash from bursting once it's in the oven. We want to bake our spaghetti squash at 350 degrees on the center rack of your oven for about 1 hour, rotating it 180 degrees at the 25-minute mark. This is going to assure that the squash cooks evenly throughout. Using a sharp knife, we're now going to cut our spaghetti squash in half and start scraping out the strands. So you want to be careful while you're doing this not to get any steam burns because this is incredibly hot. So now I've got it open, and using a fork, I'm going to scrape out the inedible center gooey part with the seeds that nobody wants. And we're just going to throw that into the garbage. And now, taking 1/2 at a time over to my dish here, I'm going to, with just a regular fork, start scraping strands out. And look at that beautiful spaghetti squash. For starters, we're going to be heating a large skillet over medium-high heat and adding our pesto. We're going to let this heat in the pan for about 30 seconds. Just stirring that in. And then I'm going to be adding a small amount, about 1/3 cup of either stock, or you could use light cream, such as 1/2 and 1/2 if you like. We just want to thin out the pesto a little bit, which is going to make it easier to coat our spaghetti squash. Once that's bubbling nicely, we're going to add our spaghetti squash. We want to get that stirred in nicely so we can see now that the pesto is nicely coating our squash. This is going to be so tasty. Now to our squash, we're going to want to add our 250 grams of smoked salmon that I've broken into bite-sized pieces. And we're also going to add about 1/2 of our grated Parmesan cheese. And again, we're going to let this heat through for about another minute so that our salmon warms and our cheese starts to melt a little bit. With our dish well combined and our salmon heated through, it's now time to season our dish. We're going to be using just a little bit of sea salt. And again, this is to taste. If you've watched our other videos, you already know how much I love black pepper. So now we're going to add a generous amount of black pepper. Give this whole thing another quick stir. And we are ready to serve. Spaghetti squash with pesto and smoked salmon, garnished with a little bit of shaved Parmesan cheese, makes a wonderful lunch entree or even a light dinner entree served with a side green or Caesar salad. Most people take to the sweet taste of spaghetti squash right away, while others may need a little more time to get used to the new taste and texture. If you're finding this is the case with members of your family, try combining the squash with a little bit of whole grain pasta in the beginning. And then each time you make this dish, you can increase the ratio of squash to noodles. I hope you've enjoyed today's review, and you can find all of the recipes used in today's dish at chewtolive.com. I look forward to seeing you next week.